Ingestad, in 2014, the Commission published a report stating its, I quote, effective captivity with Microsoft. What has been done since then to overcome this lock-in and dependence on this one supplier in the Commission?
Yeah, in the Commission and for the other institutions, I may say, because most of the institutions are working together with us on the same issue.
Yeah.
So what have we done? We have done a very thorough study of what is used in other administrations in the member states and also in big organizations. So what are the different products available on the market? And we've also driven a very effective diversification policy and strategy on what software we use in different parts of the stack. So the IT environment of the Commission and the institutions is actually much more diversified and increasingly software, open software over the years. So since 2014, a lot has happened. Because also the availability of different software, open source software, has also increased with the evolution of the IT environment.
But you still are with Microsoft products in the Commission?
We are with Microsoft products.
The situation of desktop hasn't changed.
For desktop is a small part of the environment. So if you look at data centers, for example, then you have 80%, we have 80% free software now. We have Linux for the bigger part of the data centers. So, and we are going increasingly into the cloud. We are experimenting now with the cloud. And there also the open software is much more present. We still stay with the desktops, as you mentioned. That is the layer that we still stay primarily with Microsoft, because we see that we cannot do without. That is a matter of business continuity and efficiency of our officials.
So this
We're talking about 34,000 users here. But what we are doing to change also that is to introduce also another free software, open software, in parallel to Microsoft for the desktop, for the operating system and email and office automation. We are introducing another product, an open source product, in order to make an inroad into another environment for desktops. But for the moment, we cannot do without, for business continuity reasons and also sound financial management.
We have few but very good examples of big administrations who dared and prepared this migration. It worked. For instance, the Italian army, who has already migrated in 1 year 33,000 desktop, and the project is to arrive to 100,000 in 3 years. And it works. And then there is the French gendarmerie. So it's strange to hear from you who should promote the change and prepare a plan for migration that you can't. I mean, it's a failure if it's like that. Then
yes, but you can name it a failure, but we are trying bit by bit. We cannot jeopardize the work and efficiency of 34,000 officials and the other institutions that are also relying on the same products. But we are using exactly the product you're mentioning that was used in the Italian army. That is the project that we are going to introduce in parallel in the next setup, which is starting next year. So we are going to promote this product internally in the Commission and test it out to see how it works. But a full migration to that would not be feasible at this stage, is our estimate.
Do you have a plan for that?
Yes,
are you investing money for the migration? Can you tell us something? Because this, we know for sure now that it doesn't work if it's not prepared. You can't just say to public administration, you have the possibility to go to open source LibreOffice. It doesn't work like that. You need to accompany these people with trainers, with a lot of training, and then it works. And then they told us it's equivalent. But so my question is, do you have a plan for that or not yet?
Yes, we do. It is in our digital workplace. We don't have the finer plan yet, the detailed plan on exactly how to accompany, but the strategy is clear. We want this to be a success, and we are going to accompany it very, very closely to make sure that it has full chance of success, and pilot it very, very carefully inside the Commission and with the other institutions if they are also interested in going that way. That is absolutely clear.
Nearly all of the dangerous intrusions in public IT structures, like in the German Bundestag or the European Parliament and the Commission, they were engineered with security gaps in Microsoft software. Aren't you afraid to base main parts of the EC's IT on software products you cannot test and verify yourself?
Well, we have to go with, it's the only alternative on the market that we can go with that we know works. And then we are working very clearly, very carefully on the security side as well to monitor. So we're building up security measures to be able to see exactly what happens, and we are actually, with our organization, we're among the first to actually, and we have a good information exchange as well with organizations across Europe and across the world. So we are at a height of seeing exactly what happens as soon as we have breaches. So I don't think there is a lot of alternatives forward on this. We have to stay for the moment with the product we have, and we monitor very, very carefully.
Okay, Maria, your turn.
Yes, the European Parliament asked you several times, but now I'm referring in October 2015 for the systematic replacement of proprietary software by auditable and veritable open source software in all EU institutions. So what did the Commission in order to follow this demand by the Parliament?
Well, we're working a lot with open software. We're promoting it in a very conscious way, both inside the Commission and outside with the Member States. So we do work both on the internal IT environment of the Commission and the institutions, and we're also working with the Member States. You're probably aware of the ISA program, where all the developments that we market and that we share with Member States and also ask Member States to share with each other are on open software. They are available on the Join Up platform, which is our platform for the ISA program. And we also exchange a lot with the open source community around the software that we produce that is of open source, from open source. We also work with the European Parliament, as you say, on there is a project that they proposed and they fund, which is finding a model for auditing free software, open software. So this is something we are at the second pilot stage now. We have conceived a model together with the Parliament, and we are auditing software, open software, on that basis, and we will continue with that. So we are doing a lot to actually promote open software, open source software. We also have products like the European Union public license, so to see how, under which conditions free software can be used across organizations. Also under the ISA program, a lot of the objectives, many main objectives are around exactly open source, open data, and open standards, open specifications. So I think we are pursuing as much as we can to try to increase the share of open source in the IT environment in general terms. Mm-hmm. And then we are giving open source software level playing field, really going for it where it is clear that it is an advantage and possible to go for it inside the Commission, and also we are having these discussions with the other institutions, EU institutions, to make sure that we are going forward together in the best fashion. But we are we are agreeing across the institutions on the different steps forward, on the direction forward, and discussing a lot, for example, the digital workplace together with the other institutions. So we exchange a lot of information and seeing what is possible and when.
In 2016, the Commission published a study on, we quote, best practices for ICT procurement based on open standards in order to reduce lock-in. Probably you know it, no? By PricewaterhouseCoopers. And there was recommended to make the mandatory use of open standards for saving documents and files a basic element to overcome the lock-in. Why does the Commission not follow the advice of its own experts?
Well, there is also reality out there, what is available on the market, what is available to actually, what is possible to use and to migrate to. So we're really doing everything we can to follow the advice and go forward. But there is also a reality check to see, but we cannot put our officials of the European institution in a completely unsecure from the perspective of business continuity situation. Where,
but to make them store, while still working with Microsoft software, to make them store or save the documents in open formats, it's just...
We're working on the formatting as well, yes. So we are making progress there as well, but we are still we still have Microsoft
because
for
you know,
storage.
because
That's
to change the format is the first step.
We are
to
working
get
on the
independent.
format. Exactly.
And the British government is doing exactly this.
We are changing the format, but but I can also tell you that we are not completely there yet with all the institutions,
So
because this is institutional work.
In the meantime, next year, the contract with Microsoft will end. Are you already negotiating a new contract with them?
Not yet.
But the idea is to sign a new contract.
The plan is to go for a negotiated procedure with Microsoft for the desktop layer and for a call for tender with a reseller for Microsoft, yes. And this is a negotiated procedure, so it is one of the procedures foreseen in the procurement rules for the Commission. Very heavily subscribed with conditions that have to be met, very strict controls ex post and ex ante, and with also voluntary measures of transparency that we are going through to make this as transparent as possible. So there are a lot of conditions attached to this sort of procedure, but it's fully legal, it's according to the procurement rules, and we are following all the precautionary measures connected.
The 365 question?
Yes.
This is important, yeah, because, and then we come back to the negotiated
procedure. This is
procedure.
very important, because I guess what you will negotiate is to perhaps a migration to Windows 10, which is the new form, and then Office 365, so to migrate some services, software on the cloud. Shouldn't you ask the Parliament, perhaps European Parliament, before to sign this contract, if they agree? Because this means that you, again, as we said earlier, that you, again, give, in a way, your data to a foreigner company, American company, who is submitted to some American laws. And, you know, we have a hearing, we didn't say to Mr. Viola before, but we have a hearing in the Parliament where a Microsoft representative said, answering to our questions, you know, of course we are in Europe, but if I have to choose between European laws and American laws, I am obliged to follow your American laws. So they even, we have the quote in a video, they even said that of course they are submitted to their laws. So aren't you concerned?
So this is for 365 that you're...
Yes, because this means cloud.
We have not taken that decision yet. We're still studying that, because we know that in a few years there will not be a possibility to choose. It will be cloud-based. These products will be cloud-based in a few years. So we're still studying this. What we have done is say very clearly in our call for tender for cloud provision that all data must be stored on European territory. So that is one of the conditions in our cloud framework contract. When it comes to Microsoft, then what they are doing also, of course, this is one of the biggest concerns also for the vendors, for the providers, that they have to make sure that security is correct and that there are conditions that the customers can accept. So this is what we have to see. How do they how do they propose to solve this? And one of the things Microsoft and other big vendors are doing is to make sure that they have companies on European territory that take the full responsibility for those parts that are sensitive of the provision, data provision. But we have not looked into that yet. So and there's no decision in the Commission yet on this, even Commission, and then the next, of course, level Parliament.
Doesn't the practice to negotiate this framework contract, doesn't this violate the rules of procurement?
No, it doesn't.
Which demand open competition?
Yeah. No, there are different procedures foreseen by the procurement rules, and of course the default procedure is the open call for tender. But then the negotiated procedure is a procedure that exists in the rules, and it's fully legal, and the conditions are that there is only one provider that can provide this particular solution, the technical solution. So there is no other possibility. And what we've seen is that if we did do a call for tender, an open call for tender for provision, we would land with Microsoft anyway, and it would be much more expensive, because what we are doing now is negotiating a price list together with Microsoft directly, which gives us huge discounts on their list price. Then the
but it still excludes competition. So
it does exclude competition, but if we judge there is no, we do judge that there is no competition to provide the same level of standard. And if we would do a call for tender, then we would have to include also the migration price. And this was one of the possible scenarios that we were discussing. And if you include migration price, that would explode the cost, because it's a huge migration that we would then prefer to do over time when we see that there is an open source software that is ready for migration. But let's see now, we diversify with one product, the one that has been most successful, the one that has been most successful in Europe in other administrations. And then we will pilot this very, very seriously to see how it works out.
Yeah, but you will have signed a new contract in the meantime, so you will
be
locked in
parallel. We will do that in parallel.
You say there is no alternative. The company Capgemini in recent years had developed an alternative, an open source cloud-based office solution called Claire, which could have been used to replace Microsoft Office and Microsoft Exchange. But the EC's IT department, which is yours, rejected this proposal. What was the reason?
Cloud. We're not ready to go to the cloud as it is now, and we would not be allowed by our environment to go to the cloud as it is now so fast. So this is that was the reason. You
still judge that LibreOffice, for example, is no real alternative to Microsoft Office?
It's not mature enough as it is now to replace the use we have for it in the Commission without business continuity risks. No.
Because the directive about procurement rules and the corresponding rules for the EC Commission, EC to buy its suppliers, it's very strict, no? Because it says these exemptions may only be applied if no technical alternative is a technological alternative available, and if the technical conditions for the call are not too narrowly worded.
Yes.
Yeah? So it's a very strong wording in the directive. So I wonder whether, while there is LibreOffice, while there is an offer by Capgemini, why then no open competition is being done? We did a very, very careful study, market study, before we decided to go in this direction. And we have, as we said, we have not done the negotiation yet, so the procedure is still to come with all the transparency surrounding it. But at the stage, we came to the conclusion on all the studies we did that there is no real alternative for this size organization to go immediately to this product. But isn't the Italian army much bigger than the European Commission?
You should meet this general. We met in Rome.
We did.
You did?
Yes, we did with him, and not I personally, but my colleagues. There was also before I took charge of this department.
He told us that for the purpose Office is used, LibreOffice and Office are equivalent. And he showed us in a big screen that really the difference are not so big, and with a good training. This is why I asked you, do you have a plan for migration? It seems that it's not ready, but it's not ready. You don't have 3 million to give to the migration.
No.
If it was the case, honestly, they are doing for 100,000 desktop in 3 years, which is much bigger than the Commission.
Yes, but actually we did, well, we did have some mitigating information around how successful it was and how much, how strong the breakthrough power was of it. So there is apparently predominant will to use Microsoft Office instead. So
because of the culture
by many people there. So we are not really convinced yet. We have to test it for ourselves, and this is what we want to do, and we want to do it very, very seriously. And this is why we're insisting on introducing it in parallel.
Could it be that the IT personnel, you know, those who run the machines and make the maintenance, in particular this personnel just does not want to work with anything else than Microsoft because it would demand further and different qualification and then only the typical Microsoft certificates?
I would say the opposite.
Yeah?
We had a great team, we had a big team looking into this, and we also discussed a lot with the other institutions around this. There was really a great interest in going for open software, if at all possible. I mean, our department is IT. Our people are really interested in IT and in development, so there is no such bias.
You are a former teacher Is it correct?
Yes, I studied my CV.
Yeah, I mean, it's the minimum we have to do when we meet people.
Yeah.
Because
English.
English.
Yes, English teacher.
I have a little bit the same question I asked to Mr. Viola with your sensitivity of I've been there.
Yeah.
If a private company comes at your children's school and teach them how to become digital with its product, how do you feel about that? It's, you know, experts call it the dealer approach. I give you the first dose for free and then you become dependent for all life. Yes, we receive that in all Europe, England, Italy, they use that. It's that. They only will know that. How do you
it is a market strategy for them. I think as a teacher myself, I would have been a bit careful, but there's not much that Europe can do for this, because this is really the material that is used in schools that is not really a European question. But me personally, I would have been careful. If somebody had approached me, if Microsoft had approached me when I was a teacher, I would probably have thought twice.
I can see it with my sons, 25
yeah.
years old,
Yes.
and they learned computers doing it with Microsoft.
Yes.
And then I told them about all these dependencies and so on, and now they start working, and now they start paying. Up until now, it was for free.
Then it becomes pay.
And with the first job, they learned how to pay. And if it continues, they will pay for the rest of their life.
Exactly.
Because this migration on the cloud with Microsoft now will arrive to the European schools. It's already sung by parents. Some of them called us to say we are very worried about that because there are sensitive informations through mails which could concern civil servants in European institutions, because the children and parents can exchange informations, and so there could be a security issue there.
Yes.
Aren't you concerned? No.
Oh yes, of course. I mean, this is one of the biggest questions when we go to cloud. How secure is it? I mean, on paper, when we saw the cloud call for tender, the tenders we received, all the vendors are extremely aware of this and how important it is for them to really present the conditions that show that they're secure, that data is secure in their environment. So they went far beyond our specifications actually, on the security concerns. So we have to study it, and so on paper, it should be safer than what we have on premise, at least in most of the data centers existing in cellars or in broom cupboards. And even our big data center, there's nothing to say that it's less secure in the cloud. But of course, we are very concerned. But we are studying it carefully because we also know that there is not much alternative. In a few years, there won't be a lot of alternatives to cloud. So we have to go very carefully, test, check, because we can audit what goes out or not. We can follow this very carefully and just go with very secure cases to start with. And this is something we're discussing and deciding on in a central management committee in the Commission, in order to really be sure of what we're doing. So that's not a decision I take on my own. This is really going together. But there's one thing I wanted to say in connection also with when we're talking about schools. That one of the things that is also helping to diversify, of course, is that more and more, and this is part of our digital workplace strategy, more and more of work is done on mobile. And on mobile, you have a wider diversity, because there we use all the different operating systems. Everybody chooses their own device and the operating system. So we do also diversify beyond the desktop. The desktop does become a smaller and smaller share of the work that people do in the Commission.
Unfortunately, so the Office documents are still more or less the same.
Yes.
And this is where the data is stored, and this is where the vulnerabilities are, and the complexity of the Microsoft Office documents is proven. If you put the same amount of text in an ODT document and in a DocX document, the difference is 500 elements against more than 2,000. This is why we insist so much on this Office thing, because when you look at the intrusions, all the major intrusions went through Microsoft Office software. The phishing mails coming with a simple Word document, this is how they get us. Just one question. This offer by Capgemini was a serious project, I think, wasn't it?
Yes.
What they have offered is to produce an alternative for all kind of office applications. Yes. Email,
yes.
text, calculations, presentations. So why this was not taken as a potential powerful alternative?
I have to get back to you on that one because I don't know the details of that particular development. I know that it was part of the study we made.
Yes.
So there are clear reasons for it. We studied it very, very carefully because we did make the effort of going to anybody who could present any solution that could be a competitor, valid competitor. But I can get back to you on that one.
Okay.
Good.
And also on the LibreOffice, on the wider use if you're interested in that a little bit more.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Good, thank you.